This is Elias Dufexes. You're watching That Tom Clancy Show.
Dang it, Elias, that's my line. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of That Tom Clancy Show. I am, of course, your host, Mr. That Tom Clancy. Thank you all for joining us on this wonderful Thursday, the 13th. I hope that's not unlucky, though it appears that it is definitely an auspicious date. I'm sure that at least some of you have heard of the now pending war between Epic and Apple, which of course was started because Epic found a way to get around Apple taking a cut from their Fortnite monies, and Apple responded by being Apple and removing Fortnite from the App Store, and then Epic responded because they finally now have proof that Apple does not play fair. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one to watch. I'm getting my popcorn ready over there, and I'm sure that this won't hurt Apple and all of their antitrust stuff going on at Washington right now at all. So I could probably talk about that all day, but I'm not going to because I have somebody who's waiting right over there to talk to you guys about stuff. Now, my guest today is a virtual reality developer, and he's working on a bunch of very interesting things for Quest and other mobile VR type stuff. Bits and Pixels, please give a very warm That Tom Clancy Show welcome to one Jason Gluck. Hey, Jason.
Hello, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. Sorry to keep you waiting there for a minute, but you know, the TV magic.
Yeah, the color bar magic. I like that. I like that effect.
You know, it was really hard to work out. Super difficult. Certainly wasn't a really simple shader that involved connecting quite literally two nodes. Very involved.
2 nodes, that's it.
I mean, maybe. I mean, if it were simple, that's what it would be. But it wasn't simple. He's on to me, guys. But welcome to the show. So, question I've started asking recently, which I should have been asking from the start. For all game developers, I like to get to know what you were playing.
What I'm playing right now?
Yeah. And Jason, if you would be able on your end, because I have you maxed over on mine, could you boost your audio gain a little bit?
I can try.
And also, hi, Blind Hostility. Thank you for joining us today. I will say that your name sounds slightly combative, but that's okay. Just keep that Blind Hostility in check. Yeah, I'm disappointed in me for that joke, too. You're running through Discord, should be able to. Hi, Brian.
All right,
and
I just boosted myself a little bit. How's it sound now?
At least to me, you sound pretty good. You two, how are y'all doing? Everybody good? Does Jason sound good? Jason, tell us what game you're playing right now. Yeah, I don't know.
So, man, I'm working so much these days that it's hard to find time to play games, you know? So I've just been keeping it really casual, and I've mostly been playing Fall Guys with my roommates.
Yo, that game is great.
It really is. I mean, I was a big fan of Takeshi's Castle and the MXC Spike TV remix of that show where just a bunch of idiots are just running for it down this crazy obstacle course.
You have earned 5 points for knowing Takeshi's Castle.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm a big fan of, Japan in general. I'm wearing this Anatomia shirt. This is my friend's Japanese death metal band.
Oh, word.
I go there on a pretty regular basis, and I just love how kooky and crazy stuff is over there.
Nice. I've never been myself, but a very good friend of mine from college, he spent his sophomore year abroad over there, and he came back because he was a year ahead of me, and he came back in my sophomore year, and he recorded a whole bunch of Japanese television and brought it back. And just Japanese television is the wackiest thing I've ever seen.
It's crazy. It's like a nonstop variety show of just total madness.
Well, like he had a bunch of crazy game shows, and growing up watching The Simpsons in the '90s, we knew exactly how kooky Japanese game shows were. But I wasn't ready for the sheer insanity of just normal Japanese television. Because there was one thing he had. It was a Japanese no reaction drama. And so it was they built up a set basically like a what's the word I'm looking for, a soap opera, and except that they built a scaffolding above the lighting rig, and they had people who were walking along the lighting rig with these like little aluminum like mixing bowls. And so the point was for the actors in the show to not react to these people then just flinging these bowls at them and like hitting them on the head. And I'm just like watching this and I'm just like, this is brilliant, but also the dumbest, most insane idea I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And I play a robot on the internet,
recently was like they got a big tube that's like this big around, stretching from one person's mouth to another, and they put a cockroach inside of it.
Oh, I know this one.
Two girls on either side, like blowing as hard as they can, trying to blow the cockroach into the other one's mouth. It's insane.
It really is. Like, I mean, these are things that, we air quotes can't do on American television. But at the same time, it's like, I don't think it's that we can't. It's that for the longest time, people haven't thought we would watch it. But now with like shows like Holy Moly on ABC, we're seeing that there very much is a market for that style of show on American television.
Yeah. And with a game like Fall Guys, we're seeing the potential of something as simple as just an obstacle course. Like I think that's such a simple concept, right? And like it's a game that I think anybody's really kind of conceived of or thought of, or if you've seen MXC, you've kind of been like, man, this would be a cool video game, just like running over obstacles and stuff. So it's really cool to just see that come to fruition and just get this massive success so quickly.
Yeah.
I think it makes so much sense that, just you can find so much fun in really simple core mechanics.
Yeah. Because I mean, when you really break it down, the game has like one mechanic, just run and jump. And I mean, yes, it has the grab, which that fist is for all of you people that grab me. But it's just, and it's the funny thing is that you like, if you tell somebody about it, chances are they're just going to be like, that game is dumb. But you have somebody watch it or play it, and all of a sudden it becomes like the most brilliant thing anybody's made in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And I think part of that is the simplicity makes it so intuitive. Like you can just watch that game for 2 seconds and you instantly know exactly what it is and how to play and what's going on.
Yeah. Now, of course, the big question here, have you gotten to The Crown?
I have. I actually did it for my first time today.
I hate you. I have seen it. I have been within like 3 people of it. I was blinded by the light glinting off of the points of the crown.
Well, tell me this. Did you reach for it and fall off? Because that is the real humiliation right there, is when you don't get the grab.
Oh man. No, I didn't even get to jump for it. I was coming up along the right side of those 2 like kind of branching paths, and I had just gotten on that last final hill as like 3 people were trying to jump for it, and of course from my perspective it looked like any one of them got it, but I would much rather do that like kind of hill climb than like one time going for it. It was Catch the Tail or whatever. God, I hate that game.
Kill that one off, man. Those the tails and the jinxes and like that stuff is just dumb.
I do like I forget the name of it, but the one where you're on the hex tiles, and if you sand or whenever you step on it, it starts to fall. Like that was fun, and I almost won the crown that way. I was in the final 3 for that one, and I missed a jump, and it was, of course, painful. But you know, at least I played the game.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, and it's just it's finally a battle royale that it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Fortnite,
It's a very
Warzone.
wholesome battle royale that I'm very happy to see.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of battle royales that, like PUBG, I think encourages a lot of toxicity just in like the nature of the game,
Yeah.
So I like to see something more whimsical and just happy and fun. And, people get competitive and nasty with it, but like it's not nearly as bad as other games.
And it's mostly just kind of like a trolley competition too.
Yeah.
Like don't get me wrong. I hate the people that stand at the finish line and just hug people. Like
that cracks me up, man. I love seeing that. Like, especially from a distance, you just see them like waiting there and bouncing around and hugging other people, and it just
yeah,
cracks me up. It's so cute.
it's hilarious when it doesn't happen to you, but then it does. But either way, it is such a ludicrously simple and fun game that I love it. I played it on stream on Sunday night, and I will probably play it on stream again soon. But yeah, it's a fun game.
I guess another game that I haven't been playing, but I've been reading and watching a lot about it is Anodyne 2: Return to Dust.
I think I have that on my Epic Games profile.
Yeah, it was a free game for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And, it's this retro adventure platformer kind of game, and it's got this really cool mystical sci-fi kind of vibe. Just a really colorful, interesting world with like weird characters and stuff, and it feels, the vibe that I'm getting is really similar to the vibe that I'm going for with my game. So I'm kind of studying it because I'm like, oh man, this has really cool sensibilities, and the developers did such a great job of putting it out and really, carrying this narrative through these characters and through the gameplay, and they made it really charming and retro. And I just really want to capture some of those same feelings. So I'm watching a lot of playthroughs and like reading interviews with those developers because they just did a really great job with it, and I really want to carry on that spirit somehow.
Nice. Well, speaking of your game, we get a nice little segue. I'm going to go ahead and cut to the video you shared on Twitter last month, and to let people get a look here, but tell us about HoverQuest.
You mean as this video is playing right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So HoverQuest is my first game ever. I kind of started VR dev, not really intending to make anything. I was just like, I want to work in VR, but I don't have any relevant skills. I don't know what I would do. So I figured, everybody's using Unity. I should probably learn something about Unity. And I did. I learned a bunch of stuff. And then I just kind of thought in my head, like, okay, I did like the basic tutorials, rollerball and stuff like that. And I was like, this is cool, but like this isn't what I want to make. I want to make pod racing. I want to make spaceships and mechs and all this cool stuff. So I just went for it. I was like, let me try a hover car with a dual throttle mechanism, especially because I looked up other like hover racing games. Like I think Redout is one of them that has a VR mode, and then there's Radial G, and a couple other ones, but they don't have immersive motion controls. They just use like gamepad controls, which I feel like that kind of defeats the purpose of VR for me. Like I really want to feel like I'm in the cockpit piloting this thing. So that was what I really focused on early on as I was learning development. I was like, okay, how can I make a moving vehicle? How can I attach the VR camera to that? How can I use my hands and not the thumbsticks to control this vehicle? And then I did it. And I was like, holy crap, I actually made something that is kind of cool. and I showed it to some people at some VR meetups and stuff, and people were really into it, and it got like a really good response on Reddit and everything. And I'm like, man, I should probably make this into a game. So that's kind of what I've been doing, and it's just been growing ever since. And of course, me being a new developer, I'm such a victim of scope creep.
Yeah.
Just having all these new ideas of like, oh, you should be able to get off of the hover car and walk around like in GTA, and let's go on quests where you explore mysterious ruins and stuff. And it's been getting really ambitious and crazy, but so far I've managed to keep up with it and turn it into something that I'm really proud of.
Or and this is just me spitballing ideas here, and just so you're aware, my rules are: the first one is free, future ones have a finder's fee. Is since you are already kind of making this procedurally generated kind of track, why not like Fall Guys the VR hover racer? But seriously though, you had mentioned that you wanted to use motion controls for something more fleshed out than just than using a controller. And kudos, good thinking there. But generally, one of the things that kind of like stops a lot of games that do that is that like a good example is No Man's Sky.
I knew you were going to bring that up. Yeah.
Well, it's because their controls, like grabbing the stick and the throttle, and that sucks.
It's janky, man. It's so janky. I hate it.
Well, it's not even just that it's janky. It's just that it's like, it's just, I don't like, I haven't played your game because I tried downloading your demo on itch.io, but it didn't have Steam VR support, which, cool, whatever. You're building for Oculus anyway. But something like that's literally pod racing with just like pushing your hands back and forth. Yeah, man, super down for that. That's a nice, simple control scheme where that works. But doing something complex like throttle, stick, eject, like, no. What are these people thinking?
Maybe I'll have to send you one of my spaceship demos, because I've worked on some spaceship cockpit controls as well. And like, I am so passionate about this topic because I really think that like immersive cockpit controls are kind of the way to go. And I think it's the way that a lot of people want to go. And a lot of people, try a game like No Man's Sky and they're like, this is janky as hell. Like, screw cockpit controls. I'd rather use a gamepad.
Yeah.
But it's because they just have a really janky implementation. I mean, their VR implementation is janky in general, like you got your hands like up here instead of right here. It's like, you didn't even get the hand positions right, you guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, too, I think
throttle range is like an inch, and then you're like going full blast and like an inch backwards. Now you're going in reverse. It's like the implementation is bad, and I honestly think that there's better ways to do it, and that's exactly what I'm working on and what I'm trying to prove that you can do this and it can work.
Well, one, you deserve points definitely for trying. And two, Chromosnare in chat asks, have you played VTOL yet?
Yes, I'm a big fan of it.
Okay, didn't that just like actually legit release today? Or yesterday? Or well, I know it's been in early access, but now it's like
finally 1.0, it's out.
Yeah.
So but in my mind, it's like I've had it for over a year now, so I'm like,
well, la-di-da, Mr. Fancy Pants. But no, I can say personally, I
does a great job. That I really love like the customization of it all, where you can like move the stick up and down and the throttle around and like rise your seat up and down. Like all that stuff is really important, especially for the people that are really engaged in simulation stuff, like people that have hands-on throttle and stick setups or steering wheels. They're always super particular about how everything is placed and relates to their actual setup that they have at home. So
yeah,
I love that the game respects that.
That said, though, for Star Wars Squadrons, which is coming later this year, I'm just throwing down the money for throttle and stick.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do the same.
Yeah.
I'm sad that they didn't even. I mean, maybe they did try motion controls, in production, but obviously they chose not to go that route, and it bums me out. But I think I'm down to buy a stick for that game. That sounds great.
Well, everything I'm hearing about how the game actually plays is that it is going to be very much a skill-based game. So, especially for the PC market, like give people the controls that are going to give them the most control. And nothing, no matter how good your controls are for motion controllers, nothing's going to beat an actual legitimate, tactile object that you can take control of.
Totally.
Uh,
I definitely agree
one
with
day.
that. But it's interesting how like you can gain so much immersion from a controller like that, but then you lose the immersion of like having your hands that you can just pull off of the controls and then like press a button over there or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think the continuity of immersion is really important, and having a physical stick, really takes away from that for me.
Well, I think another thing that's also worth remembering too is that if we were to do actual like legitimate Star Wars cockpits, X-Wings don't have throttles, and TIE fighters have that like weird Knight Rider steering wheel thing. So it's like the only
interfaces are all about.
Yeah, like the only cockpit of a air quotes fighter that's going to be in that game that has legit controls is a U-wing. And, I imagine that's because it was designed with a bigger budget. And yeah, they could actually be like, what all those things were missing? Actual controls. So.
Yeah. I love that they, they're really going for like accuracy to the movies and everything, where like the visibility of the cockpit in like the TIE fighter, where like all you have is that tiny octagonal window or whatever. That's ridiculous. But
I can't
love
wait.
that they actually did that, because you get a lot of people that say like, this is so impractical. Why would you do this? And it's like, because that's how a TIE fighter is, man.
Yeah, because the thing is that, it's the TIE fighter is built in a way to give you a laser focus of the objective at hand. That is the Empire. The Empire doesn't care about the broader picture. They care about putting down that rebellion that time. And also, theoretically speaking, you're going to be launching with dozens of other TIE fighters. If somebody's on your 6, one of your wingmen is going to be like, hey, Raptor 4, you've got an A-wing on your 6. At which point it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll break left. So, but either way, like, it's going to be fun. And I'm looking forward to flying my TIE Interceptor.
Yeah, me too.
Dude, like, don't get me wrong. X-Wings, so good. But TIE Interceptors just look mean. And like, yeah, and I mean, all of that is based off of like World War II movies and this romantic notion of dogfighting. So yeah, it's all about your plane looking mean.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way to do it. If I could like draw shark's teeth on the sides of that, like you better believe I'd be all over it. But those are solar panels, and I need to get the most amount of energy possible. So, yeah. But
I was looking at this. Somebody posted an insanely long Twitter thread. I mean, I don't know when the thread started, but they seemed to finish it like a few days ago. But it's like 300 something tweets about like the creation of the ships in the original Star Wars movies, and like how the artists did all the kit bashing for it and concept design, and how much they iterated before they even started production on the actual movie, and just seeing all the behind the scenes stuff of them like kit bashing old kits, and there's like plastic Easter eggs that they're hopping onto things for like the fuel tanks, and it's so cool and inspiring, man.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I like, I grew up watching Star Wars and Star Trek. And for me, they both scratch like these different itches. Like Star Trek nails like that, sailing ships fighting each other on the high seas vibe,
Mm-hmm.
and like even though it's all like phasers and photon torpedoes and junk, it still feels like, four masters trying to line up a good broadsides, you
Yeah,
know,
exactly. It's that really paced
yeah,
vibe where
where,
everything's kind of circling around each other and stuff.
yeah,
Even in
whereas,
those games, like I played Star Trek Online for a little bit, and flying the ships, you're kind of limited to like a 2D plane,
yeah.
and you do a lot of circular movements around other ships and stuff. And I thought that was really interesting that they didn't just let you freely rotate and move around.
I mean, that would make a lot more sense, especially since Star Trek or Star Trek Two Wrath of Khan also brought in the idea of fighting in 3 dimensions. But, hey, what do I know? I'm only a lifetime Star Trek fan.
Right?
But
I would have loved the freedom, but I mean, I get that they had to make their system cohesive and consistent and everything.
and it is
There's a
definitely
lot that goes into
consistent with
making
the
something
shows.
full sixed off 3D. I mean,
Yeah.
I know it as good as any developer at this point.
Chroma says he's ready for his A-wing, or I'm projecting he, but I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Well, Chroma, I look forward to trampling you into the dust for the glory of the Empire. But on my inside, know that I'm still a rebel, and I'm sorry. But, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these games, especially part of it's going to come down to just that level of immersion and stuff. And one of the things and a big part of that is going to come down to just having a solid art design that is consistent from the smallest scales up to the largest scales. And that's something that I really appreciate in HoverQuest is, I mean, you've developed this very kind of, we'll go with retro art style for the game that works at the level, like at the micro level of the player in their hover. I was going to call it a pod racer, but I was like, no, that's wrong. And that's copyrighted.
Yeah.
But yeah, and they're
Oh,
hover bikes, and then it's
whatever the
also,
thing. I don't really have a good name for it yet.
I mean, not hover bike and definitely not pod racer. I don't want to like go into stuff because you've already used your free idea, and I don't want to collect a finder's fee. Uh, but let's see. I have, yeah, this image here of like the cityscape you were working on, and that's definitely in keeping with the design you have. Like clearly, it's a city, so it gets to have a little bit more complexity and stuff to it. But I mean, ultimately, it's you're doing really basic shapes. It's a bunch of cubes with some pyramids.
Yeah, I
You know,
mean, when you're developing for Quest, the limitations are like what limitations? Like you don't even have any room at all to do anything. It's
no,
insane. You drop. I mean, you don't even drop a model in there. You just like have a basic empty Unity scene and like run that on Quest, and it's probably gonna have some frame drops. Um, so a lot of what I've been learning, as much as I've been learning, gameplay mechanics and how to make things interactive when in VR and stuff, it's like, okay, how do I get an open world, an infinite open world, running on a potato? Like this is like I didn't know if I was crazy or not. I was kind of like, is this like a totally futile effort that I'm just like driving myself into the ground with, or am I actually onto something here? And it took quite a bit of time to get the terrain generation working and like running at a smooth frame rate on Quest. And from there, I was kind of like, okay, I have an infinite landscape, but how much can I fit on top of it? And I've managed to like drop in that kind of cityscape, and there's like some villages and like outposts now. Um, there's some random kind of ruins and mysterious structures lying around. But a lot of it is me kind of like testing where that boundary is and just constantly like pushing past it and then doing some optimizations and reeling it back, and then seeing how much more I can fit, and then reeling it back. And I know, I feel like I know at some point I'm just gonna like hit a brick wall and be like, okay, this is the world now. Like I can't really put any more stuff in there, or if I do, I'm gonna need to like hire an expert to like really help me optimize this, or split the world into different scenes, which is something that I really don't want to do. I'm fine with like having a loading screen between the overworld and a really big interior,
Yeah.
but I don't want to have loading screens when you're just driving around in the desert.
No, that's no fun. But well, one, developing for the Quest is really, that's the way to do it, I feel, because it's like I'm clearly a fan of PC bound VR headsets. Because I have a nice, powerful computer just off camera that can make lots of pretty polygons happen and do so at high frame rates. But at the same time, it's like VR is one of those things that you have to share with people for them to really get it. And the only real way to do that is the Quest.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unfortunate reality, right? Like this awesome device that's so finally like it's got the right price point. It's it's the ease of use is there. It's got enough power to like run compelling experiences, all of that. But then you've got this developer ecosystem that's just like a walled garden that they're not really letting people into. So it's this really annoying catch-22 that so many VR devs are stuck in, where it's like I can make this awesome thing for PC that is going to get lost in a mountain of shovelware and might not get the appreciation that it deserves, or I can make this thing for this awesome platform that is a lot more accessible and has a lot more people that are really enthusiastic and hungry for new content, and there's not much content, so you can stand out a bit easier. But you're not going to be able to officially sell it on the platform.
Yeah.
So you have to take all of that into consideration and make these really big decisions based on really limited knowledge and, not really knowing what the potential outcomes are until you get to them.
Welcome to starting a
Luckily,
business. No.
Luckily, I'm in a position where, I'm not, relying on this game being a success, and I'm not trying to make a living off of it. I'm not, like I didn't even expect to make a game. So the fact that it's turning into anything and that people like it is a success in my mind. And anything beyond that is just awesome. And I really want to shoot for the store, of course, but I don't anticipate really getting there. But I do anticipate making this awesome game and putting it out there.
Nice. Chroma brings up in chat that retro games actually tend to look very good in VR, which doesn't surprise me at all because I mean, if it could run on like say an N64, man, an Oculus Quest is just going to destroy it.
Exactly, and that's been a lot of my approach to working on HoverQuest and Quest games in general. Is like, man, the N64 in particular. Like, I'm glad you brought that up because I grew up on the N64. It is by far my favorite console, and like all of those games, they're so awesome. There's so much compelling gameplay and narrative and like charming characters and everything, and they just did such a great job with it with so little resources. So I really look back to games like that, and games inspired by that, like Anodyne 2, where you've got these developers working on these consoles doing so much with so little. And I think that's a really great place to draw influence and inspiration, where a lot of VR developers just think, oh, I just want to make this as good looking as possible, or realism. But that not only is that unrealistic for quests, but even for VR in general, that's just really hard to pull off, even for non-VR. Like it's hard to design graphics like that. It's hard to even if you're not an artist and you're just buying art, then you're spending a lot of money on crazy 3D models and everything. And, to get really good normal maps and textures and lighting and shadows, like that's all stuff that I don't even want to concern myself with because, I'm more about the gameplay and the interaction and everything. And as much as I love like the stylistic retro vibe, I also chose it because I knew it would be easy for me to pull off.
Yeah.
And I knew that it would work for the platform, for the Quest, and that people wouldn't have, these crazy expectations, and then be disappointed that like, oh, the graphics are all low poly and boring. And like you said, I think the retro style, you can give it a lot of flair that you can't give higher detail stuff. Like you can just have big, blocky, bright colors and make a big statement with that.
Well, you have to communicate.
And pretty colors can kind of get lost in that if you don't really paint it right.
Yeah. Sorry, I accidentally tried to cut you off there, but it's the idea that you have to tell more with less. It comes down so much more to things like, say, silhouette, being able to identify things and even concepts just by shapes. Like I'm working on the side on just like a silly idea for a VR game. And I've talked about it previously on the show. I call it Escape from Dinosaur Canyon. And it's a like going back to like, say, Time Crisis and Area 51. So it's this old school, like, not rail shooter, but like that arcade light gun shooter. And it's like I have like a working framework prototype for it, and I think it's kind of fun. And now so I want to like do dinosaurs and stuff for it, and I'm just like, whoa, shit. And it's keeping it simple, and it's just like you want people to be able to pick out like, say, a Ceratosaurus from an Allosaurus. And how do you do that? You go with simple shapes with bright colors, and you just like kind of exaggerate things too. It's style over substance in a way, because, well, I mean, it is exactly that, and it's something that I will it's something that I will champion forever, which is basically that I would much rather have a non-realistic cohesive art style than a plain photorealistic setting. Like I'm not going to say Call of Duty, excellent series of games, but they're boring. They just look boring. But like you take something like, say, Fortnite or Hyperscape or Destiny or Serious Sam or Time Splitters, those are games that have a look, and that's awesome.
Time Splitters, man, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, man. Time Splitters 2 is like one of the best FPSs ever made.
Totally.
So, you've been playing Ultimate Doom in a VR mod, you say? I'm intrigued. We'll talk later.
Yeah, and I want to say I'm glad that you brought up the micro details and the macro details, because that's something that I've run into a lot of interesting trouble with, right? Where like you're on this hover car, and the hover car is pretty big, right? It's like the size of 4 regular cars parked next to each other or something. It's like a big thing. And when you're up there in the hover car and you're speeding through this landscape, I mean, it's got a top speed of 600 miles an hour right now. So you clear a lot of distance in no time at all. And like, that cityscape can whiz by you in a second, and you might not even see it, basically. So it's really interesting to like figure out how I can show this detail of like, oh, look, there's a cityscape over there off in the distance, and have that be recognizable and really cool looking. But then also have you get up close to it, and not only that, but hop off the hover car and even like walk up to the wall. And how do you get enough of a level of detail that it feels right even when you're right there up close to it, as well as when you're speeding past it on a hover car, seeing it from half a mile away? and that's
Well,
something that has been really interesting to approach and work on.
well, I can't speak for how they do it in Unity, but I do know that in Unreal, they have a very nice system set up for level of detail stuff.
Oh yeah, I've thought about LODs a lot, but I feel like a lot of the stuff I'm doing is so low poly that an LOD would be jarring to see like the transition, and that I don't even know if I really need it because everything's just so blocky already, anyways. Um, but like one of the things that I worked hard on recently is a special shader with detail maps, where you can see this rock face from a mile away and see these big chunky rocks in this texture on this wall. But then if you get up really, really close to it, with a normal shader, you would just see these huge pixels as you get closer and closer. Because if it looks good at a half a mile away, then it's probably going to look pretty bad if you're like face to face with it. So I made a special shader that just layers the same texture at a much smaller tile size, but only when you get up close. It kind of fades in as you get closer to it, and then you just see the same texture, but just way smaller, so that you can actually see the detail even when you're right up close to it.
Nice.
And something like that, I think, there's got to be that seamlessness, right, between the macro world and the micro world. If you're driving around on a hover car super fast and then you get off and you walk into somebody's house, for instance, and then like pick up a cup off the table, like that's a huge stretch of detail from like huge things to small things.
Well, in
And
that
managing that can
exact
really
instance, I would say you're feature creeping yourself.
well, yeah, I mean, I said that myself earlier on, where
You did.
I'm a total noob, and it's hard not to just get excited about all the possibilities.
Well,
Um,
hey,
try to
the
keep up
one
with them.
thing you need to keep in your mind in this instance is there's nothing stopping you from exploring those ideas at a later date. So, like, my air quotes sage wisdom is, nail your gameplay loop and then just build on that.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
that's good advice. I've been the thing is you brought up Steam VR, and that's been something that I really want to support. And when I started, I was just like, okay, I'll get the Oculus SDK since I'm developing for Quest, and da 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 da. And now it's getting to this point where I'm like, okay, I should package this into something that I can sell, and I'd like to, charge money for this and put it on Steam and do it right. But if I do that, then obviously I need to support Steam VR. I need to make sure the Knuckles work and the Vive wands work, and so I got to change all the input and get rid of the A and X buttons on the touch controllers because the Vive wands don't have those. And
but the Knuckles controller do.
God, don't remind me.
Well, I
Um,
mean, it's hard for me to forget because I'm thumbsticks, touch strips, and then buttons. So I love my
yeah.
index. That thing's so good.
Um,
And
so
hi, Nick.
I'm kind of caught up in a lot of refactoring right now because I'm trying to make sure that it works with Steam VR, and I'm cleaning up a lot of the crappy code that I wrote when I was first starting out and didn't really know what I was doing. Uh, so, you know, I want to say like, yeah, I'm focusing on the stuff that matters, but I'm also just kind of like slogging through this refactor and distracting myself with other stuff because I'm like, this is really annoying and I don't want to deal with this right now. So let me work on something new and pretty and inspiring.
Yeah.
And it just keeps pushing me towards more scope creep, But you're right. I got to get back to the core gameplay loop, the stuff that matters.
Well, I wouldn't call supporting more headsets scope creep, especially because we
Oh
we
no,
mentioned
I'm
earlier.
talking about like
Yeah.
making that detail map shader and like I'm going on all sorts of tangents with the work that I'm doing, and I'm not working on the things that really matter right now, admittedly, just because I've got to finish refactoring first.
Yeah. believe me, I can understand. I've tried to explain this to family.
Oh God.
Yeah, they don't get it. Uh,
Yeah, I'm lucky to have a few mentors that I check in with on a regular basis that are like software and just industry type of people that really can relate to this, and I talk to them a lot about it, and just try to get advice and insights from wherever I can. In fact, I also organized a VR meetup in my hometown before COVID, of course. Over the past year, I've been just I just kind of got a membership at a hackerspace and was like, hey, VR nerds, let's hang out together and just make cool stuff together. And it kind of blew
nice.
up this big thing, and we got this VR lab at a hackerspace in East Oakland now, and it was a weekly developer meetup that I was doing where we would all just hang out and share equipment and make stuff together. And man, that was super inspiring and really helped keep me on track, and I met a lot of other developers that are way more experienced than me that were able to help me a lot.
Yeah.
And since COVID, I've just been kind of locked in my room working by myself again. And the whole reason I started that meetup in the first place was because I was tired of just working by myself and just slogging through it all. And now I'm just kind of back where I started, just having trouble to like keep myself going through it. And it's I don't know. I mean, if I'm being totally honest, it's taken a toll on my mental health. Like the whole situation is really crazy and difficult, and it's just had an impact in so many parts of my life. And developing a VR game is definitely one of them.
Some might even say that it's unprecedented.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. I'm upset with me for saying that too. No, it really has, like, there's, as much as I hate saying this is a weird time, it's unique, it's unprecedented. The truth is, unfortunately, that it is. But we're also, like, when you think about it, we're in this great crossroads of history where we have a level of technology available to us, especially in our space, where it does suck not having that immediate human contact, not being able to get a high five, or like shake a hand or something like that. But the ability is there for us to maintain this level of community that we couldn't have even done 10 years ago. I mean, Zoom, Discord, Slack, Skype, Notion, Trello, Jira, Bugzilla, like shit. I mean, the list goes on of all of the different ways. And I mean, especially the larger developers, it's been really nice to see the rollout that they've done of hardware to make sure that people have quality kit to be able to do work at home. And then also, too, just the idea that they have something that defines work from not work, and it's just, yeah, it's a terrible time, but a wonderful time. But I miss high fives, like, so much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard, man. I mean, there's a silver lining in everything, right?
Yeah.
And I definitely see that, but I don't know. I'm having a hard time with it, even with all the tech and the Discord and Trello and Zoom and all that. It doesn't quite do it for me, man.
No, there will, until we figure out a way to like actually get across, like full haptic suits or whatever. There's not going to be a replacement for direct human contact. I'm on furlough for my day job. I went in and to talk to my manager about what it's going to look like when that furlough ends, all that stuff. And I haven't talked to her for a few weeks. And did I need to talk to her for a half hour? No, but I did, because it was nice to talk to somebody who doesn't live in my house.
Yeah, yeah, I can relate.
So
I think for me, more than it's like the lack of human touch and connection or whatever, it's more that, like, I used to just hang out with friends on a regular basis, and we would just see each other and have really important conversations and work through our problems together and stuff. And now it's like it's up to either one of us to really actually it's up to both of us, right, to really put in the effort to you know schedule and hop on a Zoom call or whatever. And it just feels like I don't know, it's harder to like get in that swing, like on a normal day I would just like hit up my homie Brandon and be like, hey, you want to get some dinner or something. But now it's like I'm not going to be like, hey, you want to hop on Zoom and eat dinner together. It's just
Well,
not
if
really
you,
like that as casual of a thing to just kind of like pick up and do.
if you
As
ever want to get better at that, I highly recommend starting a podcast that is built around guest interviews.
I've thought about it actually. I've got a bit of how do I say it? I don't know. Internally, I'm kind of a huge a-hole, right? Like I get really judgmental and really mean, and I have a lot of critical things to say,
Welcome to
especially about
being
VR and
human.
the VR industry, right? And I there's been this part of me that wants to start like an angry VR nerd podcast and just bring guests on and just rant about what a total crap show everything is, because it is just the state of the industry, the state of the developer ecosystem, like the SDKs that we're working with and APIs. It's all such a friggin' mess, man. And like the companies making this stuff, they need to hear it.
Just remember your friendly internet robots. That's all I want to say.
Will do.
Smiley
Maybe someday
face.
you'll be a guest on my show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have too much to complain about because I go through Unreal, which literally handles like all of that stuff for me. My main thing is just that like there are things I want to do that require me to learn things that I don't want to learn, like C++.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I mean, one of the, probably the biggest savior for me is VRTK. Like, there's so many cool features in VRTK, and I'm using version 3, from like 3 years ago.
yeah,
And it's got all this amazing stuff in it. It's got continuous smooth locomotion. It's got climbing. It's got two-handed weapons. It's got, levers and buttons and all sorts of really cool stuff. And then you look at like Unity XR, which is what everybody's touting as the future. And it has like 3 grab mechanics, and you can teleport, and like that's kind of it. And I'm like, I don't know if this is really doing it for me, guys. Like I kind of need more tools to make a game. And I don't want to just make those tools from scratch, especially when I could just use a 3-year-old toolkit that's better than anything new. So
yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of how I've been working so far. I'm working with Unity XR too. In fact, I have a couple client gigs going right now that they insist on using Unity XR because it's the future or whatever. But I'm having I'm just not enjoying it. I'm like, man, this sucks, having to do everything from scratch and like dealing with this stupid system that doesn't work half the time. And I've been really surprised getting into development, like since I'm new to this, right? And like learning this stuff when I first started like a year and a half ago, the steps were pretty straightforward. Like, get the SDK you need. Here's VRTK if you need some extra features that aren't in the SDK. But now it's just like there's so many different frameworks and SDKs and APIs and Unity XR and OpenVR and OpenXR, and like what are all these? Like if I was just starting now, I would be so much more confused than I was before. And people come to me asking for help and advice sometimes, and I'm like, well, I can tell you how I do it, but it's kind of the old way that people don't really recommend anymore. So I don't want to recommend it, but this is how I'm doing things. And it sucks not really being able to just point somebody down a path that is just going to get them where they want to go. And I feel like that path doesn't really exist right now. And there's so many people that are trying to forge that, but they're like, it's You know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah.
it's so weird how messed up everything is, and
Well, there's
I'm really
just
passionately like against that. I'm just like, dude, we need just a solution that helps us make cool things and not just like dive into low level code for everything.
well, the only thing I really have to say about all of that is that uh, that's the way it's always going to be, and that's not to like be dismissive or anything. That is because there is no one way forward. You know, like using VR real quick here because it's our common denominator. What you're looking to do with VR is very different from what I'm looking to do with VR, and the solutions that I might find are going to be like really useful if somebody wanted to try making this shit show again. But what I learn isn't necessarily going to have applications for you, and it's like everybody, and even if there are things that are necessarily helpful, every tool is ultimately going to have a limit in its usefulness in different use cases and for different developers. And it's we all have the limitations of what we're capable of doing and the vision that we want to accomplish. And those limitations, as well as our inspirations, are what pushes us to ultimately make the things that will enable us to accomplish our vision. So, would it be nice to have better foundations sometimes? Oh my God, absolutely. But unfortunately, especially if we're trying to do things that haven't necessarily been done before, those foundations aren't going to exist because there's a distinct possibility that we're among the first people to be doing it. So,
I disagree with that because VRTK exists and like it's pretty cool and it's got most of the things that like most people need. I think. So I'm kind of like people say stuff like that and then I'm like, but what about this awesome framework that has existed for 3 years?
it doesn't do a damn thing for me.
Well, yeah, in Unreal, I don't know
Well, I mean,
what
like
there
Steam.
is.
Well, it's
But,
just what I'm trying to do with VR is I'm literally to call it VR is kind of inaccurate in a way. Like, am I using VR? Absolutely, but I'm using VR for things that it wasn't really intended to do. Because like I'm doing virtual production is effectively what I'm doing.
right.
I'm doing motion cap, and it's just like trying to I'm like taking this square peg and trying to use it to get to the moon. Wonderful square peg, and the moon is a lofty goal. Uh, but and sometimes you can really do some cool shit with a square peg. But
Oh yeah.
and yeah, but
I mean, man, going back to where we started with Japan. I don't know if you've seen the VTuber scene, but holy crap, man! Like, there's a crazy market over there for virtual production and virtual, obviously virtual pop stars and stuff, but like even just VTubers that are just hanging out talking about their day and stuff. Like, um, it's crazy that the one of the most popular ones, what's her name? Why can't I remember it? I don't know, but I saw her in a cup noodles commercial last
wait,
time I was out there.
you're saying I could be big in Japan?
I think so, man. I think you should maybe have a Japanese VTuber on your show sometime.
Maybe I should just try and be a Japanese VTuber, except like in English, because I don't speak Japanese.
Yeah, you're gonna need a cuter avatar.
What's wrong with my? I am looking very nice today. But I've seen the VTuber stuff in HK Japan. There are even classes you can take for it over there. No shit. Chroma, we gonna talk after the show.
Yeah,
And
I mean they got VTubers making big deals with like, you know, mainstream corporations and TV networks and stuff. It's really impressive, and I'm really amazed at like how many American people, or like just people in the VR industry in general, are like totally sleeping on that and just have no idea even what a VTuber is.
Dude,
Where,
I'm
you know,
feeling
like
really
top
upset right
VTuber out
now
there has
because,
a
like,
team of like 100 people working for her. It's crazy.
yeah, I'm really upset right now because I thought I was on to something unique, but no, Japan done beat me to it. So,
Yeah. I see Chroma just mentioned virtual cast, and I met those developers the last time I went out there. It was it was crazy, just like hanging out with them and like meeting all these random people, and like, holy crap, they are animals, and they just work so hard on so many different things. And like, man, I got to show you like a clip of their office or something, because it was just such it was like a nest of like cables and like old Famicoms and like some weird like Segway rollerblades and a disassembled synthesizer, and then like dude just like chucks a DK1 at me and like some old Steam controller prototype and stuff. It was like, man, these guys just go so hard on all of this you know, virtual everything. It was really impressive.
Jason, I'm gonna take just a moment here to change cameras real quick, and I'm gonna have a real talk with Japan. I was like, come here. Here we go. Call me. Let's sort this out. Because, like, I'm bringing American style of stylized, ridiculous avatars. Uh, and I think we can learn something from each other. And also at the same time, I'm quite upset to find out that this was already made over there. And I'm taller than you. So I think you can guess where this is going. All right, back to the main show. Now that I've threatened an entire country. Fun times. Not really. Well, everyone in the audience, if you guys have any questions for Jason, feel free to chime in. Anything to get me off of my upsetness of finding out Japan beat me to this.
Well, I don't know if they beat you to this, because you know, this whole like talk show setup that you got going is pretty clean, and you know, I've seen like VTubers get interviewed on like a real life talk show, but not on a virtual talk show yet.
I guess I can start reaching out.
Yeah, honestly, I think you should. It'd be pretty interesting.
That
See
said,
that
though,
crossover, and like I said, like I'm surprised there's so many people sleeping on this, and I think it'd be really cool to bridge that gap in a lot of ways.
well, if anybody has any cool VTuber videos that they'd like to share, please go ahead and send them to me either on Twitter at Tom Clancy, THOM, the H is silent, but very important. Or if we're Discord friends, send them to me there too. I'm very intrigued by this weird trend. But yeah, other than that, dude, we've already gone for like an hour and over an hour.
I feel like I'm just getting started, man. Come on.
Dude, Jason, look, man. I can talk to people all day. That's
Right.
hitting that hour is never the hard part.
Podcast, and it was supposed to be half an hour, and I think we went for like an hour and a half. And they were like, "How are we gonna cut this down? I don't know. It's so good."
Just release an extra long one. That's what I do, and then nobody watches after the first 3 minutes. So, not nobody, but you know. But yeah. Well, the last real question I have, for to keep things relatively in time is, what are your long-term plans for HoverQuest?
All right. That's
Notice how I said relatively.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one, right? Because I'm a huge victim of scope creep. So I've got a whole lot of ideas swimming around up here that I'd love to bring to fruition. Uh, but what I know I want to do is get it out on Steam this year in early access or whatever. Um, and ideally, I want to finish it next year. I don't want this to be one of those games that I'm just working on for 5 years or something and nobody cares about it or anything. So I don't want to, I figure like at some point next year, I want to be working on a sequel, not this game anymore, or, just something different. I can't stay on any one thing for too long. But ultimately, I want there to be a story, and I have a story in mind. It's just a matter of like how it's really going to integrate with the gameplay and the interactivity and everything. Like I'm still kind of floating back and forth on like, is there going to be dialogue? Are there going to be like text boxes that you click through when you talk to people? Like, I'm still kind of figuring some of that out. But ultimately, there'll be a reason that you're there, a reason that you're exploring this world. One thing that is almost done and should be in the next update is procedural dungeons. So there'll be some, an infinite amount of kind of places to dive into and do some smaller scale exploring and attacking some enemies if that's your thing. I don't want to say too much because a lot of them are just ideas at this point that like I'd like to get to, but I'm also dealing with the limitations of the quest, and I don't really know when I'm going to hit that brick wall.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say like, I plan on doing this, but a year later the quest might just be like, nah, dude, this isn't going to work. So, there's a lot of ideas that I'm ready to give up on if I have to, basically. But definitely just like cruising through this awesome world, exploring different points of interest, interacting with characters and artifacts, and kind of finding your place in this world and solving this ultimate mystery, which is, part of the story that I don't know if I want to get too much into right now.
Word. Well, it's good to know that you do have a roadmap ahead of you. A complicated network of roads, yes, but a map. So,
in fact, I literally drafted a map just a couple days ago with my roommate.
Oh,
saying,
dang,
man!
man!
This village over here and this over here, and yeah, it was pretty fun.
Nice. Oh, and hi, Skiva. You've got like the best timing of showing up within like the last 10 minutes of the show. I swear, man. Skiva's he's a cool dude. He's one of the two hosts on a live podcast about VR on YouTube. Between realities. There's that and there's rendered reality, and like the two in my head get conflated. But I'm not confirming anything, but I might be trying to get him and his co-host on the show at some point in the future. But shh, that's hush hush for right now. Dude, like, yeah. And then of course, the end of the month is coming up too. That means more pitch a game. Oh my God, my next like 3 weeks are going to be just crazy. But, well, Jason, thank you so much for joining us today. But
Yeah,
before you go, there's something really important.
Oh God.
It's time for the 5 questions. Now, for you, just in case you don't know, and for everybody watching at home, the 5 questions are 5 questions that I put together before the show that have nothing to do with anything we have talked about thus far. So, question number 1. What is your favorite sword?
My favorite store?
Not sword. Like
Sword.
Yeah, like
Okay.
slashy, cutty, stabby.
I'll tell you the first one that came to mind. I don't know if it counts as my favorite. I think I'd have to think pretty hard to like figure out what my favorite one is. But the first one that came to mind is the sword from Devil May Cry.
Oh, that's a good
Um,
choice.
the one that has that mouth on the hilts and the
Yeah.
blade is coming out of the mouth of like this demon, and the parts that stick out of the wings.
Mm-hmm. No,
Really like that design.
that's a good one. Man, video games do have some excellent swords.
Heck yeah.
I mean, if I had to go video games, I would probably go with like the Blades of Chaos from God of War. So just like, I mean,
That's two blades, man. Come on.
but technically they're butterfly swords, so they can be made to look like one sword.
Okay.
So, but either way, like if I were to go like legit favorite sword, I would probably go with a Japanese Nodachi because I just think that sword looks baller as fuck. So, but you know,
Nice.
neither here nor there. Question number 2. Who do you watch on YouTube?
Who do I watch on YouTube?
Well, while you're thinking about that, Skiva did mention the Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII. I mean, okay. And of course, lightsabers. Like, yeah. Lightsabers are great.
Those are the great ones.
Even though they're not really sabers, I would call them more like an epee or a rapier.
Yeah, that Buster sword is super cool. I love the like materia slots that it has.
Yeah.
The idea of like augmenting a sword with spiritual energy and stuff. Like, yeah, man, that is super cool. But question 2 is YouTubers.
Yeah. Who do you watch?
So I'm always watching Sebastian Log. He's a really great Unity developer that just has these awesome coding tutorials, and he does these videos called Coding Adventures,
Mhm.
where he'll just like try something that seems kind of crazy and just figure out how to do it, and post his results. And he's made really cool stuff like procedural planet generation, ecosystem simulation with like a whole host of animals that are like eating each other and breeding and stuff like that. Most recently, he did a solar system simulation based on that game Outer Wilds.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like an active solar system with planets revolving around a sun, and you can fly a ship from planet to planet. And man, just like he's such a brilliant programmer, and he demonstrates everything so clearly, and he's so articulate that just he explains everything really well. And looking at his code, I'm like, man, this is great code that I can read really easily and I understand how to use. And I think he does something that a lot of developer YouTubers don't, which is iterate. A lot of developers will just like learn how to do something, and then they'll make a tutorial video like, here's how to do the thing. And it's like, well, there's a way to do the thing, but did you really like iterate and find the best way to do the thing?
Yeah.
And I feel like he really does that. Like in his videos, he'll show like 20 attempts at doing the thing before he finally felt like he nailed it. And I really appreciate that from him, because I feel like when I use his code, or when I pull ideas from him, I feel like I'm using something that I know is going to work.
Yeah.
Where a lot of other coding tutorials and stuff, I'm like, you just learned how to do this before you made this video. Like, how do I know that this is going to work in my game that I'm trying to like bring to a complete product, and I always feel really, really satisfied, and just like all of his code is just really smart and well done. And I just so thankful for that, and for all the knowledge that he shares. I've even supported him on Patreon and everything. I love the guy.
Nice. That's a good YouTube channel to watch, I imagine. Yeah. I dig it. I like that answer. Well, question number 3. And in your opinion, what is the best television show of all time?
Fooly Cooley.
Wow.
Hands down.
I was about to say that was not an answer that I normally expect from my audience. Or not my audience, but from my guests. But I definitely should have expected that from you, given your love of Japan. Also, it is a very good show. I will freely admit that it is excellent.
Mm-hmm. I love how bizarre it is and how it just throws you into this like, like it feels like it could be real. Like it starts out like, oh, this is Earth. This is just like a weird place with like this weird iron thing in the distance or whatever. But like it really eases into like fucking crazy stuff that is just like totally out there with like
Yeah.
this like I tuned into it when I was probably 10 years old. I was like on a family vacation, just like flipping through channels, and it was this part where they're sitting on top of the medical mechanica plant, on this giant weird iron structure, and she like starts shoving her hand into his head, and she's like gets her whole arm in there, and she's like digging around, and he's like, no, stop, you're not doing it right, and she's like just reaches further in and pulls out this glowing red orb that turns into a flying V guitar. And I was just instantly hooked. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Hashtag Japan.
And I just had to watch the rest and fell in love with it. And I gotta say, another show, even though you only asked me my favorite show, I have to say another show that I've been totally crazy about since I heard about it like 6 months ago is Farscape.
Oh, yeah, that was a great show.
The hell out of Farscape, and I cannot get enough of it, man. It is so cool.
Jesus, when did that come out? That came out either when I was in high school or college. I don't remember, but thanks for making me feel old. Welcome to the daily occurrence on That Tom Clancy Show. Tom feels old. Let me tell you about the time I watched that show in high school. It was a Friday night and I was a nerd, so I didn't have anything to do, so I watched Farscape. No. Old man Tom, we'll talk to you tomorrow. But question number 4. What is a trade skill that you've always wanted to learn?
I guess woodworking is what comes to mind. My dad was a woodworker, and just always made a lot of really cool furniture, like dressers and cabinets and stuff. And he'd do the cool like claw feet, and just like really elegant swirly stuff on the corners and whatnot. And he passed away when I was pretty young.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Having those physical creations of his in my family's house, and some of them are still with me today, when I'm living on my own and stuff. And it's been really powerful to like have those as like sort of relics of his life and of his legacy, and I think even when he was alive, just interacting with furniture, it seems like a pretty menial thing, but like there's just knowing that it came from somebody and that they put so much love and care and like passion into it. I really learned to appreciate that, seeing him work on stuff. And then after his passing, I appreciated it even more, just knowing that these were his creations, and that he touched this table and this dresser set like more than I'll ever know.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
That is probably the most heartfelt answer to one of the 5 questions I've ever received. And that's awesome.
Cool.
Well, number 5, would you rather have an Iron Man suit or telekinesis?
Probably telekinesis.
Yeah, I'd have to go with that too. Like, don't get me wrong, an Iron Man suit's great and all, but like, but telekinesis. That's.
I mean, who needs rockets when you can just levitate and
Yeah.
fly?
I mean, Iron Man can't like use effectively the Force to bring his beverage closer.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I guess technically he could like launch his glove over to pick it up and bring it back, but that's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, now you got me thinking about like games that are like Iron Man, and then games with telekinesis. I'm thinking of like PsyOps. You ever play PsyOps?
Yes, I did. My first games job was working for Midway Games before they, literally right before they went bankrupt.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like I got to know some of the people who worked on PsyOps and Mortal Kombat and stuff. So yeah, they still had like a big PsyOps, like cardboard standee in like the studio too.
Awesome. Yeah, PsyOps was one of my favorites, man. That game. I mean, I think it really flew under the radar. Like, not many people I talk to know about it, but I remember it so fondly, and just like throwing ragdolls around and lighting people on fire with your mind. Like, man, they really like nailed the feel of that game really well. And the only other game that I've seen since that feels similar is Control, which is also a really cool game.
I do need to play that. I haven't played it. I need to play it. It looks so pretty.
Oh,
and
it does.
And it has ray tracing, and I have an RTX card, so I really just want to be
like, I just got it free with my RTX card, so I'm like, yeah, I'll try this game out. It seems pretty cool. And I'm like, dude, PsyOps, yes.
Dude, that's weird. I didn't get shit for free with my RTX card.
Is it a super? Maybe it's a
no.
Super
I was an early adopter too. So I mean, I guess that's what I get for being an early adopter.
Yeah,
was worse frame rates.
If you're a PsyOps fan, I recommend Control, because I feel like it really carries on that legacy pretty well.
Nice. I will keep that in mind. Well, Jason, it's been awesome having you here.
Yeah, awesome talking with you.
Now, other than your Twitter, which has been cycling through on the front of the screen throughout the whole show, are there any other places where people can go to find information about Hover or Hover Quest, or just to kind of keep up with your development stuff?
So there's the HoverQuest Discord that you're welcome to join. My Twitter page is probably where I post the most updates right now. I'm kind of trying to keep it low key. Like I was even kind of hesitant to post that pitch a game tweet that I made recently, but as I finish refactoring and like starting to push towards Steam VR and stuff, that's when I'm gonna try to make more public pages, like a HoverQuest Twitter page, and just put it more out there and make it more accessible, and
dude,
have a lot of information available. But
when you push that Steam VR version, hit me up, man, because I want a pod race.
Yeah, you got it.
So I mean, we're Twitter DM friends and Discord friends now, so you have no excuse.
Nope.
Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us. And then this is where I fumble for my keyboard over here, and I switch over to this fancy camera angle, and I say, thank you everybody for watching the show. It means so much to me to have you all here in the studio audience. Nick, of course, you're here all the time. Love you, buddy. Chroma, Skiva, thank you so much for joining us. There are more people that I would love to thank personally, but unfortunately I can't. Hold on a second. I can. Just don't mind me doing things with my mouse, because I can. And so let's see. So Nick, Chroma, I'm Trash999. Thank you for swinging by. Blind Hostility, you were here earlier. Hope you're still here. If not, thank you for coming by either way. And of course, Mr. Bad Idea, Brian, one of my good friends and mods for the channel. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. Normally this is where I would be like, hey, these are all the shows I have left for the rest of the week. But I'm thinking about changing it up a little bit and just giving you the heads up for tomorrow. So tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, I'll be sitting down to talk with Kane, who is the developer for a game called Sushi Ben VR, which is about making sushi in VR, which I don't know anything about making sushi, but I know a lot about eating sushi, so I'm totally down. Otherwise, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you next time on that Tom Clancy show. Tom Clancy show. I swear I work here and I know what I'm saying. But until then, remember, drink that water, take your vitamins, wear your mask, be safe, and give one of your pets an extra pet and hug from me, because I don't care what your pet is. I'm sure it's lovely and I'm sure I love it. So thank you all. I will see you all in the next episode. Good night.